Heath McMillian is our guest. Heath was invited by Brent Mullins, but Brent unfortunately could not introduce him today because he had a business conflict. TCAT is Tennessee College of Applied Technology, for those that don't know that. There are 8 of them in our state, and ours at Elizabethton, in which Heath is in charge, covers our area. Heath is a native of Gates City. His wife Michelle is from Kingsport. He has a son Connor and daughter Kaylee. I met them several years ago. They lived in Fairacres, so what they named their little singing group, Fairacres. And then John Campbell threatened to sue him for name infringement. No, that's not true. But Connor, by the way, is also a National Guard member, 278th Armored Cav Regiment. He's a cavalry scout, and that's pretty cool, and appreciate him doing that. So he was in Kingsport for several years, but he left us to go to 2 different job promotions, and finally he's back in the area, but he lives in Elizabethton now. Prior to his current role, he was the president of TCAT Jackson and executive vice president of TCAT Jackson on the Blue Oval City TCAT project. In that position, he managed the construction of the new 120,000 square foot TCAT, the Jackson Extension Campus, to serve Ford's Blue Oval City. And he worked with TBR, Tennessee Department of Labor, and Ford to develop curriculum and programming, and identifying training for funding for training. So that's really a big job, but we're fortunate we got him to come back here to take over our TCAT. He has all kinds of degrees in various things that like advanced manufacturing and business and so forth. He went to Montreat. He also has an MBA from East Tennessee State University. He's done apprenticeships. He knows all this technical hands-on labor stuff. He's been trained in lean manufacturing principles with certifications from UT's Haslam College of Business and McKinsey and Company. With these certifications, he implemented 5S and lean into pipe fabrication shops for Eastman Chemical's largest manufacturing site. Heath really knows this business. Please give him a big Kiwanis welcome.
Thank you, Mayor. Before you sit down, Mayor, I got one quick thing. On behalf of TCAT Elizabethton, faculty and staff, I want to present you with the challenge coin. We appreciate your service to our country and our community.
Oh, gee, I'm out of the reciprocating coin business, though. Thank you very much.
It's okay. Well, good afternoon. It's always, I always feel not worthy of when you read off those things, Pat, but just a kid from Gate City, Virginia, graduated high school with an 18 on my ACT. Started Northeast State in remedial math and remedial English. So it just goes to show you, where you start doesn't mean where you're going to end. So I'm very thankful for the opportunities I've been given, but I'm most thankful to be back home. But I've been given some great opportunities with the state. I enjoyed my time in West Tennessee. It was a great project to work on, and it's going to be transformational for the area and our state as well. So if you're following that project, and I apologize, I do have a lingering cough. But so TCAT Elizabethton, we'll talk a little bit about the facilities, the programs, our allied health, our special industry training, and our dual enrollment, and then our overall enrollment. So we have campuses in Elizabethton, Instructional Service Center in Unicoi. We have 2 campuses in Elizabethton, actually. We have a Mountain City Extension campus. We have a Boones Creek Extension campus, and of course, the Kingsport Instructional Service Center at the Old Sullivan North, which is doing really well. So we have 23 programs at TCAT Elizabethton. So pretty much anything that you could be interested in the hands-on and allied health fields. So enrollment at our main campus, 394 students. Herman Robinson campus, 62. Our Kingsport Instructional Service Center, I think that's over 100 now. I have plans of seeing that go to over 200. Our Boones Creek Extension campus, 207 students there. We have a brand new building coming online there with heavy equipment operations and off-road diesel. Mountain City Extension campus, 167 students. Unicoi County, 25 students. Our Correctional Education Initiative, 65 students. Our dual enrollment has broken a record this year, 1,500 students. Our allied health, very proud of the allied health programs that we have at TCAT Elizabethton across 3 cohorts. Excellent enrollment there. I won't read off all these to you. Pat told me I only had 40 minutes with questions, and he was pretty stern about that. So I'll try to, I don't think I'll go 40 minutes, but one very important thing here is, I guess that clicker works on the TV, but the bottom line, the average NCLEX pass rate for our LPN program across the state is 87.65. The national is 82.48, and TCAT Elizabethton is 98.3% pass rate. That's a very impressive number. I can't take credit for it, but we have some amazing faculty members there that prepare our students well. Our dual enrollment, again, has increased a lot, and we're working with all these schools currently. That dual enrollment number should be 1,500, but 20 high schools. That 5 years ago, that was unheard of. So I'm very grateful for the work that went into here at TCAT Elizabethton. Where I came from, we were up to 3,000 at TCAT Jackson. So I expect that to grow as well. Just a highlight here to talk about. We've gotten grants for what's called an anatomage table, and these are our 3D instructional tools for our allied health. And I get a little squeamish at needles and things like that, and I went in so they could show me, and about 10 minutes in, I said I'd had enough because it's so real. I just couldn't. But it shows blood flow, arteries, veins. It's one of the most amazing things I've seen in allied health. And you can go to most universities and they don't have these anatomage tables. So very, very grateful to be able to get those and train our students. So special industry training, we work in the prison in Johnson County, in the jails and recovery centers. We've had some amazing work go on in our recovery centers. Recently we've had 2 graduations. We work with 5 local companies right now and 1 international company. One interesting piece about our special industry training and our correctional training, we are now the largest offering in the state for correctional training. So we're even beating Nashville. I'm going to try to keep that going because when we look at a lot of folks that are justice involved, a lot of those people, they're not capable. A lot of times life got in the way, and we think about how do we get them out? How do we get people? How do we reduce recidivism? I'm very grateful to work with the state and work with the governor that's committed to that. And one of the biggest ways to help people not go back is through a good job and good skills. And we're grateful to be able to work with those folks and giving them a pathway into the workforce. So let me talk about TCATs a little bit. Some people don't know, we're a clock hour institution, okay? 3 trimesters in a year. We don't close in the summer. We'll be just as full in the summer as we are in the spring and the fall. But we're graded on three things as a clock hour institution. We're graded on completion, placement, and licensure. And those numbers are very important to our accreditation. We're accredited by the Council on Occupational Education. Many of our colleges are accredited through SACS, but we have a different accreditation. So why are these important to us? So if we have a program that drops below 70% in one of these areas for 3 years, we can lose our accreditation. So what does that do? That incentivizes everyone from me all the way to our instructors that we're involved with our industry and our industry partners to ensure that we're teaching what they need to be taught. You see when you look at our curriculum, we have every trimester, we have something called worker characteristics. Can you show up on time? I mean, are you leaving early? How are you working with your fellow classmates? So those are some very important things that some people don't know, but we're very committed to those rates for our students. We care when they leave, where they're going. So that's something that's very near and dear to my heart. And as you see, we have a 92% completion rate. We have a 91% placement rate and a 96% licensure rate. That's my presentation. But what I'll say, and I want to give plenty of time for questions. But for me, as Pat talked about, I came through the trades. I graduated from Gate City High School. I had a certificate in residential wiring. I went to Northeast State and got a degree in instrumentation and automatic control systems. Worked many years in industry, but then in North Carolina when I was at Montreat, and then I came back to Eastman. And I lived in North Carolina for about 6 years, and after my wife graduated, I didn't graduate. I tell people I crammed a 4-year degree into 13 years. So it took me a while to finish that bachelor's degree, but I was working. But I was working over there. We built a house in a place called Mars Hill. I don't know if anybody's been there, but lived in that house about 6 months. We had 2 small kids, and I came home one morning because I worked night shift at a CD and DVD manufacturer, and my wife said, I think I want to move home. So just built this house, and I said, okay. So Eastman had started advertising for hire direct into the apprenticeship program. I was 26 or 27 years old, and I applied, and I got hired. They hired me as an industrial electrician for my instrumentation degree. Turned in my resignation. Went for my physical. 1 week into my 2-week notice at my employer, and I got a call from the HR manager. He said, Mr. McMillian, we've got a problem. I said, okay, what is it? He said, you're colorblind, and you can't be an electrician for us. I said, well, I've already turned my notice in. I'm quitting. He said, that's okay. He said, we've got another program that's called field mechanic. He said, it's welding, pipe fitting, and millwright. And I said, Mr. Gwynn, I'm not going to blow you full of any smoke, but I've never struck an arc in my life. I can't weld. And I'm 27. And he said, that's okay. He said, if you're willing to do it, we're willing to train you. So at 27 years old, I moved back to Kingsport in 2005 and became a welder pipe fitter. Started as a mechanics helper at Eastman. Went through their apprenticeship program and progressed, and as through time went through their management program. Was able to manage Regional Center for Advanced Manufacturing for some time, and worked with a lot of communities and businesses here to develop apprenticeship programs, and then had the opportunity to go to West Tennessee. But that's it's near and dear to my heart what I'm doing here. I'm thankful to be home. I'm thankful for what you guys do. I appreciate your time here today, and I'm going to go ahead and turn it over to questions for anyone. I think this gentleman in the back went up first. Cost structure can fluctuate depending on the program. One of our most expensive programs is probably around $10,000. But we, all of our students, the majority of our students are eligible for Pell, and then the last dollar scholarship, Tennessee Promise and Tennessee Reconnect, most often picks up any of the other cost. I don't know if you're watching the latest governor's budget. The TCAT is going to be taken out of Tennessee Promise and Tennessee Reconnect. The reconfiguring that last dollar scholarship with what's called the Tennessee Works Scholarship. We think that's going to be a good thing for everyone. So for the most part, those tuition, it ranges for each program, but the majority are covered. So if we have a program that Morristown doesn't offer, they can definitely come to us. And we do have, even in the dual enrollment, we've offered some programming to students in Greene County that wanted to come to our off-road diesel program, actually. But we do have service areas. I have a 5-county service area here, but anytime that I would go outside of that, I have to coordinate with that president and ensure that they're okay with that as well. So, good question. This dual enrollment has significantly decreased the age. And I know when I was at TCAT Jackson, when I first went there, I think our average age was around 26 years old of our students. But I know here that's significantly lower. I'm going to guess our average age is 22. But for the dual enrollment, so there's a lot of different ways that we can do that. Well, not a lot, but one is we go in basically and take over a CTE program in the high school. Let's say they've got an automotive program. We take our curriculum and competency, and we contract with that instructor to teach what we teach. We do have options for students to come to our campus that they can do that as well. And we're doing a lot of that. Dobbins Bennett buses some of them over, and some of them, if they can, they drive themselves. So they'll double block them, and they'll come to us for two periods or for 3 hours. And Mayor Scholl and I, we were talking about that. And, one thing that I've coached my kids, and I've coached some other students as well. When you're thinking about your education and continuing education, you really need to try to be strategic about that. And I think, unfortunately, in the past, we've just told kids to go to college, and that's not a bad thing. But you should always think about, well, what's that degree going to do for me? There are some degrees we all know that might not be as profitable as others, and I don't buy into that there's no liberal arts degree that you should get. I don't buy into that. I was telling Mayor Scholl when I was at Northeast State many years ago, we had an engineering professor, and he'd always say, the first thing they teach you to say after you get a liberal arts degree is, right, would you like fries with that? And I don't believe that. I mean, there's plenty of liberal arts graduates that are very successful in the workforce. But again, I still stick to, you should be strategic when you are choosing your educational pathway. My son, he graduated from Northeast State with an electrical degree, and I was living in West Tennessee, and I talked to him every night, and he went to work for some contractors, and it wasn't going like he thought, and I said, well, son, I finally, after about 40 phone calls and him complaining about how some of the contractors were treating him, I said, son, I've told you. I said, you can do this for 30 years or 40 years and deal with what you're dealing with every day, or you can go back to school. And fortunately, he chose National Guard, and he has plans now of going back for civil engineering. So my wife, my daughter is, so we were very strategic about her. But now what I will say, we almost had a little hiccup with her. She was going to be a nurse midwife, I didn't even I didn't even know what that was necessarily. But come to find out, a nurse midwife, you get your RN, you get your nurse practitioner, and then there's an 18-month certificate to go after that. And the only college that offers that is Vanderbilt in the state of Tennessee. And so we talked about it a lot, and we had her set up to go to UT Chattanooga. And I started thinking, what do they do? And this is how strategic I was. I looked it up on YouTube. And well, I watched some of these videos, and these nurse midwives are saying it's a good thing, but we're working the same hours as these doctors, and we're getting paid half of what they're paid. And I showed my daughter that one of those videos, and we were sitting on the couch. She said, "Well, I don't want to do that, Dad." And I mean, we were a few months away from, and I said, "Well, we need to think about something else." So luckily, she went and shadowed at a speech pathology, and she came home that day and she said, "That's what I want to do, Dad." So she's now in graduate school at ETSU for speech language pathology. Not every student has that opportunity for a parent to sit down with them. And another thing, I talked about my ACT score. I know I'm kind of rambling. I kind of get on soapboxes when I talk about workforce development. But when I was working at RCAM, I remember giving a tour to a Dobbins Bennett English class. They were lower performing, and there were two African American girls in the class, and we got done with the tour. And after the tour, I set them down, and I said, what I want you to know is whatever you've seen here today, you can do that. And I said, the next thing I want you to know is you might have some academic skeletons in your closet, and that's okay, because I had plenty. I remember begging a geometry teacher to pass me so I could graduate high school. But I said, the last thing I want to tell you is I don't care what your ACT score is. And those two girls, they were spinning their chair. They weren't paying. But when I said that, both of them stopped and looked at me, and they said, "Are you kidding me?" And that's when it hit me. My daughter had 23 on her ACT, and I remember her crying on the couch because she didn't think she was going to get the money that she needed. But I thought, we've got high schools full of students sitting in high schools thinking that their entire future is based on that score. That's one of the most false pieces of information that we can give a student. Does it matter? Can you get a lot of money with a great ACT score? Sure you can. But does that define you? It certainly does not. So, sorry for the soapbox there, but I don't. I know we're going to have a graduation of 80 dual enrollment students soon. We do. Each program is required to have an advisory council, and our instructors are connected to the industry, and the industry are talking to each instructor to say, who do you have, or what's going on, and they're always connecting those students before they complete to those industries in their respective programs. One right back here. We haven't implemented that at our TCAT. I know that community college, when I was there is a career assessment there. I manage career services at the community college. I think it's something that we should implement at the TCAT. But a lot of those students, they've been in our dual enrollment programs, and they kind of have a pretty good idea of what they want to do. So wouldn't be a bad idea if we had something like that, for sure.
And I wonder about your...
I do have the data, but I don't know it. They send it to me every quarter. I don't know it. But we have a lot of programs that typically the females tend to matriculate towards. Our LPN program, our PCT, which includes phlebotomy. Our phlebotomy program has a 100% pass rate. We have an amazing phlebotomy instructor. We have cosmetology at Arnie Street and Boots Creek. Most of the majority is female there. We have an administrative office technology program. We're soon going to implement a new retail hospitality and tourism program. We're going to articulate that with ETSU and their hospitality program. We did the same thing at Jackson. We articulated our retail hospitality and tourism program with University of Memphis for 21 credit hours. So they can either go into the workforce or they can continue their education. I don't know so much about retention, but we definitely have an issue with recruiting. So, I often say we've had a skills gap for a long time that's created an instructor gap, and so it's definitely difficult to find those instructors when they can make oftentimes double in industry. But when you find those people that are committed, to helping others, that's the ones that usually stick around. So again, we have the advisory council. We have an institutional advisory council, but each program is required to have their own advisory council at least once a year. But most of ours are meeting twice a year with their industry partners, and they go through the curriculum and competency guide, and if there's new content that they want to see added, depending on how much that is, we could implement a new certification on our own. But if we're going to completely change one trimester, that would have to go through academic affairs, through TBR. So that would take 6 months or so. That has to go through board approval, but we do have a pretty strong process and staying connected with our industry. We do. We don't have as many night programs as we used to have. Those programs usually have to have around 15 students to even break even. So it's something that I want to look at in the future and adding some of those back. We have nighttime cosmetology and nighttime welding at our Unicoi campus. We have diesel at our Johnson County campus. We don't currently have any nighttime programs at our Elizabethton or Kingsport or Booch Creek campus. So at the Johnson County prison, they have a whole high school with their own principal. And what we've done is went in and contract with those instructors, give them our curriculum and competency guides in our computer information technology program, our carpentry program. But in the recovery centers, we haven't branched into the credit side. Our recovery centers, what we focused on is industry recognized credentials. Like we're giving them OSHA 10, we're giving them PMI, that's precision measuring instruments, learning how to use read a tape measure, how to use calipers, micrometers, giving them those basic skills to enter into the workforce. I do have a soapbox about industry recognized credentials as well. But before that, workforce development at its core, right? It doesn't start with me teaching a student how to weld or how to wire a circuit. It starts first and foremost of us helping a student understand purpose and then giving them the confidence to pursue that purpose. We graduate a lot of competent kids, but they don't have a lot of confidence that they can do anything meaningful in the workforce. I go back to these industry recognized credentials again. A lot of times, the worst thing about an industry recognized credential is industry don't care about it. Industry just wants to know, what can you do for me today? But does that mean they're not valuable? Certainly not, and I'll tell you why. I remember my daughter coming home with a Google certification when she was at Dobbins Bennett. She said, "Look, Dad, what I did." What was that? That was immediate confidence that she could do something meaningful in the workforce with what she learned at school. And that's why I think these industry recognized credentials, especially for justice involved folks, they've been to school, a lot of them. They're not dumb. They're very, very smart. But when they start to get these industry recognized credentials, and then they start to see that they can do something meaningful, and we relate that to the industry, it's that immediate purpose and confidence with what they've learned.